Please welcome the panel on AI leadership, business aspirations, and value propositions, moderated by senior media and technology correspondent at CNBC, Julia Boorstin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be back here at Milken. Sorry, I don't know if this microphone is too loud here. Is this okay? Sorry. Thrilled to be back here at Milken to talk about what I think is probably the most pressing issue in our economic development today, which is the deployment and use of AI. And I'm thrilled to be joined by an awesome group of panelists with exposure across this AI ecosystem. We have so much to cover today. I want to remind everyone that I will be getting your questions if you want to use the QR code and submit questions. And really want to make sure this is as interactive as possible, not just among all of us on stage, but with you as well. So I want to introduce our panelists, and we're going to jump right in. I don't believe in long introductions. Aparna Channapragada, Chief Product Officer, Experiences and Devices at Microsoft, is right next to me. Then we have Francis D'Souza, COO of Google Cloud, Ariana Huffington, founder and CEO of Thrive Global, Clara Shai, Vice President of Business AI at Meta, and Matt Wood at the end there, Global U.S. and Commercial Technology and Innovation Officer at PWC. AI is certainly essential for anyone in business and certainly anyone here at Milken. So by means of introduction, I'd love to hear from each of you how you're approaching AI in your current role. So Clara, I want to start with you. I was lucky to get to interview you recently for CNBC, and you're still relatively new in your job as head of business AI at Meta. Since AI is part of your job title, and perhaps I think one of the few here with AI as part of your job title, what were you brought over to Meta to build?
Sure, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be back at Milken. You know, Meta is using AI across the entire business, from advertising to creators to consumers. And you know, many of you may have heard of Meta's Llama open source models that have been downloaded over 1 billion times now. And it's really a strong fit for developers, for enterprises. I would guess probably most, if not everyone here, your firms are a good fit for that. On the consumer side, we just launched Meta AI as a standalone application. It has nearly 1 billion monthly active users now. And so really the third leg of the stool is, what about the hundreds of millions, if not more, small businesses out there that don't have the AI and machine learning teams who are able to fine-tune models and figure out the whole retrieval process? And what about AI for everyone else? And so I was brought over several months ago. I was previously at Salesforce, and at Meta, my role is to take all of this technology around AI and simplify it so that even the one-woman jewelry designer in Brooklyn who sells her necklaces and earrings on Instagram, even she can, with one click, deploy an agent on her Instagram messages and WhatsApp messages to respond to the hundreds of messages that she's receiving every week and just doesn't have time to respond to today.
And when I think about the early days of Facebook, what was so important about what Facebook did for small businesses was basically allow any small business to create a website. Is there something analogous here in terms of what you're doing for AI?
I think it's a perfect analogy, right? It's really about democratizing access to AI. We all know that it's valuable. What about the most businesses don't have the capacity to do it, and how do we make it as simple as possible and use it to solve acute needs that they have in their business today?
Bringing it over to you, Aparna, as Chief Product Officer, Experiences and Devices, how much is your business focused on AI?
You know, I think in some sense, when you think about Microsoft, we are all about empowering individuals and businesses to achieve more. And actually, I want to start with a stat that would be super interesting for this group. We do this research every year. We've been doing this for 5 years. It's called Work Trend Index. And one stat that it's to see what the shift is in the workforce. And one stat that jumped out at us this year was that 53% of leaders want everybody to be more productive. not a surprise there. They just want more
I'm
productivity.
surprised it's not higher.
Exactly. But at the same time, 80% of employees, and actually employees and leaders, are maxed out. They said they don't have any more to give. And so to me, AI it's that solution for that capacity gap. So very clearly, you all see it in your organizations, business demand is outpacing labor. So we are laser focused at Microsoft on capital P productivity, right? AI tools for work to get more work done.
And does it seem like it's just an acceleration of things that you've already been doing? Did this generative AI revolution that started a few years ago, has that really had a notable impact, or is it really more just more of the same of what you were doing
It is a
before?
big, I mean, Julia, one thing that I see is, look, the way I like to think about, I'm a diehard AI optimist, so I have to say I've worked in AI for more than 2 decades now. And this time, I do think it's different. And I think it's different in 2 ways that I'm seeing. One is that the technology shift itself, what used to take decades, is just compressed to months, right? And what that means for all of us, I'm sure you're all reeling from it too. It's like, 2 years ago, if you said, oh, I'll just like say something in a prompt and a beautiful image appears, you're like, this is magic. And today, it's Tuesday. It's just like last year's magic is today's commodity. So that cycle is getting compressed. And the so what we are seeing from customers is all the leaders have to absorb that change and then figure out the so what for their employees, their customers.
Yeah, we'll talk more later about how this technological wave is different, but I first want to get to everyone else first. So Francis, over to you at Google. As COO of Google Cloud, how much is your job focused on AI versus all the other things that you do?
Yeah, sure. I'd say AI is impacting my role and Google Cloud in sort of 3 big ways. One is in our interactions with customers and what they want from us. 2 is what we're building as technology. And then 3 is just how we run Google. In terms of interactions with customers, I mean, you cannot overestimate how important AI is to our customers. And almost every interaction I have with customers includes not just AI, but more specifically how they can deploy agents in their company. And the use cases are really varied. Companies like Honeywell and Toyota are using Gen AI on their factory floors to make manufacturing information more available to their customers. Companies like Papa John's are using it to create more seamless experiences with their customers. And then you have companies like the new media companies, like Snap, for example, that are from the ground up reimagining their customer experiences driven by AI, across video and images and chat. So, that kind of interest from our customers is driving a lot of sales for us. So if you look at last year, we at the cloud in Google, the Google Cloud Group did $43 billion in revenues, up 31% year over year. And that's a lot driven by the interest in AI and the deployments that we're seeing. In terms of what we're building, it's full stack AI for us, from chips, quantum chips, AI chips, to the models, the range of models, image, video, the Gemini model. In fact, today we just released Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is pushing the boundaries of coding use. And then we also are partnered with all the other models. So Vertex AI, we've integrated with over 200 models, not just from Google, but OpenAI, DeepSeek, Anthropic, everyone out there. And then in terms of how we run Google, it's changing the way we run Google. We use AI, in our sales and marketing process to help us respond to RFPs. We use it for coding. So today, over 30% of the code in production at Google comes from AI. And so it's really touching everything we do.
There was a lot of conversation about this last week when Mark Zuckerberg and Satya Nadella were talking about what % of code at their company was generated by AI. Claire, I see you nodding here.
Yeah, well, it's code generation, but there's so many other aspects of software engineering that are also today very onerous for software teams. So checking the code, testing the code, being able to understand how it works in different situations. And then once you identify issues, resolving those issues. And so I think every stage of that coding lifecycle is being transformed.
Yeah, it's really, so you said 30% is your number.
Yep.
Mark Zuckerberg said soon it'll be 50% for Meta. So Ariana, over at Thrive Global, you run a very different kind of company, right? All these are so far we've heard from tech companies, but you're running a company that's about improving the long-term outcomes when it comes to health. How are you using AI, and how do you expect to continue to ramp that up?
So we launched a company together with the OpenAI Startup Fund to develop a dedicated AI health coach that can take expert coaching, what probably everybody in this room uses in some way to help us improve our foundational 5 habits that affect our health: sleep, food, exercise, stress management, and connection, and to democratize that through the superhuman memory and power of personalization that AI makes possible. Now, that is actually going to also dramatically affect productivity. You talked about productivity. Right now, 130 million people in America, I'm sure many of them are employees of many of the companies represented here, are suffering from chronic diseases. Many are suffering from mental health problems. That also affects productivity. So now, when we talk about productivity, we need to connect it to health, because stressed out, sick employees are not going to be productive, even if you give them the best AI technology in the world at their disposal. So both with the self-insured employers we work with, including Microsoft, we just won the RFP to be your global vendor for health and well-being, so we look forward to working with you. But so both self-insured employers, but also pharma. This is what is interesting now. Behaviors used to be seen as important for prevention, but the prevention train has left the station for millions of people. What pharma now recognizes, and this is our motto: medicines plus healthy habits beat either alone. So Eli Lilly is a strategic investor in our AI health coach company, and is going to bring the coach in July to Lilly Direct. So you go to Lilly Direct and you get your medicine, not just GLP-1s, but any medicine, and then you get the Thrive AI coach for free. And the reason here for a pharma company to do that is that obviously when you improve how people eat and how they sleep and how they exercise and deal with stress, you're also going to improve adherence. And one of the biggest problems with pharma companies is that people stop taking their drug, even life-saving drugs. And obviously, even the best drug in the world doesn't work if you don't take it. So we see this AI coach being part of the life cycle of an employee, of a patient, and seeing it being introduced both by self-insured employers who are increasingly alarmed by the rise in healthcare costs every year, and by pharma companies.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And to think that, if you really want to drive adherence, it's all about integrating these new tools. Now, Matt, over on the end, I haven't forgotten about you. You have a different perspective yet again, because at PWC, you're not only thinking about deploying AI internally, but primarily how you're advising your clients to approach it. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we partner with a lot of the folks on this panel, but our interest is in the application of AI to drive PWC's transformation and to drive our clients to the leading edge through artificial intelligence. And internally, it is hard to overstate just how much investment and energy and momentum that I see across the firm. We have 380,000 people at PwC, and I would say, as we measured it, over 90% of the teams have an active, ongoing AI project underway today inside the company. And almost all of those exist around building AI agents, which allow us not just to vend information or understand how to answer a question, but to be able to actually complete tasks which are rudimentary and undifferentiated for the firm and for our clients. That allows us to take all the time from that and reinvest it into how we interact with our clients and how we advise our clients and so on and so forth. We've built several hundred agents in production today, and last count, it was 2.2 million tasks that had been completed autonomously inside PwC. And that is all time which you may think of as just an efficiency gain, but it is driving a tremendous amount of growth and value for our clients, because we can take all of that time and immediately reinvest it into the type of problem solving that our clients want from us. They want more quality. They want to tackle harder problems, some with AI, some with other types of technology. And so we were able to take all of that time, not just as an efficiency saving, but to actually use it to drive a meaningful increase in the quality of service that we can provide. And we take that same learning from all those hundreds of agents and we package it up into professional services engagements and software platforms that allow our clients to be able to take agents that they have built from Google or from Microsoft or running in Copilot or that we've built with them and piece them together, not just so they can see each other, but so they can actually collaborate in meaningful ways. And we've seen collaboration that you might expect, so just following a workflow and getting from A to B quite much more efficiently. But we've also seen really interesting collaboration on tasks where there is not a direct, easy to understand process to get from A to B. Like, I've got $100, turn it into $1,000. There's not an obvious way to solve for that. But the more agents you build and the easier they are to collaborate, the more problems that you can solve that are hard to predict how to get from A to B. So whether it is in life sciences or financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, literally every industry in which we operate is investing very significantly in AI, and it's been inspiring for me personally to be a part of that.
Well, this question was raised earlier by Aparna, but how this wave of technological innovation is different from prior waves. And you alluded to this a little bit, Matt, but I'm curious how the way your clients and even internally you're approaching this is different than, say, the cloud revolution or mobile. Is this a different category, or is it just moving faster?
Personally, I think that it is different precisely because of how fast it's moving. But for the audience here and everybody watching, there is a lot of lessons that you can learn from previous technology shifts that can inform your strategy going forwards. The most pertinent one, I think, today is how do you get to scale in your AI investments? It matters because you get a better return on your investments, but also scale of usage with AI is disproportionately important because AI gets better the more that you use it if you train it the right way. And so getting to scale inside most organizations is just critically important. And the way that we've found the best way to advise our clients and that we've found successful internally is that, we were talking about this before we came on stage, is to kind of, you need to think fast and you need to think slow. There are innovators inside your organizations that don't need any incentive to get started on this stuff. The skills required to get up and running are incredibly low. And you've got to create an environment for that group to run and experiment in a safe sandbox so that they can drive all sorts of invention inside your organization. And there's going to be a whole group of people inside your organization who just want to get their work done. They just want to use this stuff in a way which is safe, applicable, integrated. They don't care about the underlying models. They just want to understand how it can help them. And you need to be able to help the innovators innovate in a safe way and give them an innovation message as leaders, whilst also ensuring that the late majority inside your organization are getting the message that there are guardrails around this stuff, that there are playbooks, that it is well understood, that you're investing in how they can build trust in the systems. What does it do well? What does it do poorly? Giving visibility into these things. You can't go to that late adoption group with an innovation message. They're just going to retract from it. It's not what they're there for. But you do need that innovation message and muscle to be incredibly strong for your innovators. And so you have to be running two engines on your plane, one hot, one cold at all times. And bridging the gap between those, that is the role of the senior leadership teams.
I'd say that, just to build on that, I mean, in addition to the speed and the fact that what good looks like is a constantly moving target, what makes this revolution so different is that in the past, you know, within sales, within marketing, within R&D, within procurement, technology has helped those functions perform their jobs better. AI changes what those functions even mean in the first place, and it really blurs the lines across what we traditionally have thought of as human resources departments across an organization. And so it's really interesting, right? Just even take the example of, you know, just look in the CRM space. In the past, you had sales siloed from marketing, siloed from customer support. From a consumer or a B2B buyer perspective, that's not a great experience, right? You don't want to get transferred from department to department. But those were the limitations that we had to live with, given the way that the workflows were built and the way that the data was structured. Now with AI, we can completely transform those workflows. They can be cross-department workflows. And in the same conversation, someone who's shopping could have a customer support question. They could have a sales question about something that's in their cart. And all of that can be seamless, both because the AI treats these workflows as tools. The agents treat these workflows as tools across systems. And it also treats the data as just a repository that they can search. So this is the same, what Satya described as multi-repo CRUD. So imagine that playing out. I think it really will force us to rethink how we set up companies and what the nature of each worker's role is. It becomes much more expansive with the assistance of AI and with agents.
I think it will force us to rethink even more. As Mustafa, who your AI CEO at Microsoft, wrote in his book, The Wave, this is equivalent to the big transformational leaps in history. Electricity, the printing press, the wheel. And I think what makes it so transformational is that, as most of the experts agree, within the next 3 to 5 years, if not earlier, because everything is accelerating faster than we thought, AI will be more intelligent than humans. Now, this is huge. This is existential. We need to address that. I actually think it's great, because let AI be more intelligent and let humans become wiser. I think this is the opportunity we have now. If AI is going to be more intelligent than humans, if Descartes' "I think, therefore I am" no longer applies, then who are we? What does it mean to be human? What are the qualities that humans embody that AI cannot replicate? If AI will be better than we are at so many things, including PowerPoint presentations and dad jokes, what are we going to be better at? It's things that are less tangible but incredibly important. Compassion, empathy, loving, judgment, wisdom. And this is going to be an incredible moment for us, not just to make AI more human and keep making AI better and stronger and faster, but use AI to tap into what is best in humans. That's what excites me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll add. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to pick up on what Ariana said, because this is at the crux of, I think, look, the models will get better, the intelligence will get better, all of that, we kind of see it. It's a stance and behavior, and here our muscle groups need to build. But I want to zero in on what you said, which is, what is the role of humans? And again, even in the company sense, what is the role? And to me, I think one of the things that we're already seeing is that an average employee, today you have, like with AI, you have an Einstein as an assistant, right? You have a world-class expert, not just in one discipline. You have like a world-class researcher, a salesperson, an HR person, everything in your pocket. So I think as leaders, we have to think, then what are the new skills these employees need or even leaders need? And one way I've been thinking about it is, do we go from doers to directors, right? We are all kind of CEOs. Each employee, do you think of them as a CEO of their team of agents, right? And the skills that they need to look at is, hey, how do you direct? How do you delegate? How do you manage? How do you build these bridges? And taste and judgment.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just add a couple of things. One, the message I think that everybody should take away is AI is going to impact every function, every role in every company in the near term. This isn't a one-function thing, whether it's, if you're a physician or working on the factory floor or an investment banker or an investor, customer support, it's every function. The other thing that's different about this revolution is typically when technology enters, it's taken on by smaller companies, digital natives, and you see the large companies embrace it over time. That is not the way this is playing out now. We went in 1 year from some of the largest companies in the world doing pilots to being in full production. So Verizon is using us, in their frontline customer support to interact with customers. I talked about whether it's Toyota on the factory floor, Honeywell, these are big companies that are already using it in production. And so this is the fastest pace I've seen of any technology being embraced and adopted, because we've heard a few times it's existential, and the truth is you now have the ability to make everybody orders of magnitude more productive, to do things that couldn't have been done before. And I think companies are realizing if you don't get on it quickly, you risk disintermediation.
One of the audience questions here ties exactly into this conversation, which is, does the proliferation of ML tools, especially agents, put a premium on genuine human interaction for customers? And I think that's what you were saying, Ariana, this idea of wisdom, these skills that AI doesn't offer. Clara?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can just share an example. I've gotten to know, I was using the jewelry designer example, but I've gotten to know this business owner, and in the past, she was inundated with so many onerous kind of customer support questions about where's my order, does this come in this other size, does this come in this other color, that now she can really focus her time on serving the clients who have deep questions where they want to design custom pieces, they want to understand the materials, they want to establish that human connection that Ariana was talking about. And it's interesting to think, too, about how these experiences can live and really transform the consumer internet as we currently know it today. One of the most exciting things that my team has been testing is if you think about today's ad journey, right? You see an ad on Instagram or on Facebook, you click on the ad, you go to the merchant's website, you add the product to your cart, you check out, you add your payment credentials, right? That whole flow of e-commerce hasn't fundamentally changed in probably 20 years. And with the exception maybe of mobile, but it's largely still the same steps, just on a mobile device. But what if that ad could be an agent? What if you could talk to an ad and say, does this come in blue? Does this come in purple? What if you could invoke other Gen AI features like virtual try-on? Show me wearing that ski jacket. Show me wearing it in red. What if you could just transact right there? I think a lot of how we experience the web, the internet today, is about to change in very fundamental ways, in addition to everything we've just been talking about from a worker productivity and experience standpoint.
I think the other area that I'm excited about the web changing is seeing AI as a defense against all the bad things that have happened with the previous use of algorithms. And what I mean by that is that so far, a lot of the social media algorithms have been built on the assumption that in order to maximize profits, you have to appeal to what is worst in people, their biases, their rage, their anger. What about if we use AI to also appeal to what is best in people? You see, we are at this real turning point right now when we need to redefine what human nature is. What are humans? And if you accept that human beings are a mixture of good and bad, you can make money by appealing to my biases and my anger and my judgments, or you can make money by appealing to what is best in me. And if we start having companies making money by appealing to what is best in people, we are actually going to transform the whole technological ecosystem. So the reason why I'm a techno-optimist and why I don't agree with Yuval Harari and a lot of the doomsayers, Yuval Harari wrote in his last book that AI will hijack the sort of operating system, he called it, of civilization. Well, that has already happened. I mean, look at the crisis we're facing with social media affecting children in very fundamental ways. AI can be a defense because of hyper-personalization, because it can know everything about you, so it can feed you the right nudges and recommendations at the right moment.
Let me
Yeah,
build
and
it. Oh, sorry.
I think I wanted to actually give an extremely mundane example of like what Clara and Ariana were talking about. Our team was doing some customer research, and this guy said something that just stuck with me. He said, when I was 8 years old, it's not like I woke up and said, oh, give me these 500 emails to wake up to when I go to work, and give me 50 of them to, mark as spam or something. So if I feel like there's so much drudgery in the work that we all do, both in life and at work. And one of the things we really should hold a high bar as leaders in saying, how do you free up? Like use AI put it in its right place, right? Use it to make the drudgery go away. You come back from vacation, give me the 3 things that are most important to make that connection between me and my boss really meaningful. Not, kind of spend 15 hours plowing through the things that I never want to look at. And it connects back to what you were saying, Ariana, too. It's like, how do you make sure that we're not just thinking about efficiency? Efficiency is the first wave of AI. We're all there. We get it. I think the next wave for me is this empowerment, which is we're on the cusp of what I think of as a 21st century renaissance moment here. Like, there are materials being discovered that are eco-friendly, completely synthetic because of AI. There are protein structures being discovered. There's healthcare and AI. I think that's the reason to be optimistic and not be doomsayer, as you put
And
it.
if you look at healthcare, that's a perfect example of an industry where you want more empathy from your provider, and yet today we're putting doctors and patients in an impossible position to say they have to munch so much information. And so what we're doing, for example, working with the Mayo Clinic or Seattle Children's Hospital, is they're using AI agents to say, go look at the guidelines, go look at the healthcare records, prepare a summary for me so then I can do what I should be doing as a physician or a nurse. And then similarly, small businesses now, one of the things we're excited about is we're seeing a proliferation. We have 2 billion AI interactions in Workspace every month. A lot of that is driven by small businesses that are using AI or sole proprietorships. And what that means is we're now arming them to do what they do best, understand the market, connect with their customers, and use AI to scale their business without taking away that valuable time.
Claire, you want to jump in there? Sorry, Matt, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I think there is I think there maybe is a little bit of a risk of going down a cul-de-sac. If we're currently thinking of the best way of using things like agents, which don't just answer your questions but complete a task, the way that we're thinking about them today, primarily, or most people are thinking about them, is humans interacting with agents. And I think that's fine. I think that we'll get a good degree of efficiency gains. But I predict that in the next year, the primary user of agents will be other agents.
Yep.
And that as you start to think about what types of products and experiences come together through that mode, the internet changes as we currently understand it. The role of having something which can read my emails or can answer customer support, I suspect that it won't be humans interacting with customer support agents, it will be human agents dealing with customer support agents on our behalf. And then if you ratchet that up through abstraction on abstraction on abstraction, play it forward even 18 months. And think about what the internet would look like, where it's not humans driving websites or humans interacting with a series of agents, but agents driving agents on the behalf of humans. Like, the whole world is going to look very, very different. And I think that we are right on the cusp of that happening. If you look at the sort of technologies that are being developed at the lowest levels, we're starting to put in place the protocols. Google did an amazing job with their agent-to-agent protocol. That's like a dial tone for agents to talk to each other. We've seen really interesting work from Anthropic and OpenAI in communicating and standardizing how agents talk to one another. That's the switchboard for agents. And we are slowly building up the communication protocols, just like we had to do with the web, where we had DNS and HTTP. The beginning part of your web address literally tells your browser how to talk to the website. We're not going to see any of that, but we need to put those protocols in place to allow the agents to converse in the way that the websites converse with humans today. And we're just at the beginning of that happening. I suspect that that is going to move extraordinarily quickly, and to the point that when we're all here next year, if I'm invited back, I hope I am, that we will be talking about agents driving agents, not just humans driving agents. And we don't yet have a mental model, an organizational model, or a technical model to think about what that looks like.
we also don't have a human model.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Because the
Completely
way you are
agree.
describing this would be alarming for many people. Like agents, handling agents, what's happening to my job? What am I doing? How am I feeding my family? How am I dealing with this radical uncertainty and monumental change? We can't just talk about what machines are going
Yeah,
to be doing.
we have to talk about the
We
workforce.
have to talk about what's happening to humans, and we have to start talking about that now.
I want to let Clara get in a thought here before we shift to the workforce question.
Oh, sure. I had a personal story to share, which I think could connect some of what we've just heard from Ariana and Matt. So I have an elderly father, like a lot of people are dealing with the sandwich generation. He's 87. He has serious heart failure, type 2 diabetes. He's probably doesn't have long left. And generative AI has been so helpful to me to consult on both what to do and what treatments to find for him, which ones that may not be worth it, but more importantly, what to say to him. Because I don't even know. I'm often at a loss for words when I spend time with him. And I do think that starting with the human need, both his and mine and our families, it's so important as we design these systems. And yes, as we play this out, it would be really helpful for the advice that Meta AI gives me on the care that I give to him. It'd be awesome if on the healthcare provider side, it could coordinate with the agents of his various specialists, from his eye doctor to his podiatrist to his endocrinologist to his kidney doctor. I mean, he has a dozen different doctors. That it's a lot of work for my family to try to coordinate all of that. And so I think starting with human need, and both physical, emotional, mental, whether it's in our personal lives or at work, is essential for making this work. And then, there's a lot of the technology that all of our companies have been working on to make that possible.
So when it comes to this human question, there's the question of the workforce, and there's a question from the audience that asks, how can people take advantage of AI instead of being replaced by it? And yes, we're talking about AI driving productivity, helping increase GDP, but the question of what will it do to the workforce? And Matt, I'm curious for your response to this question, because you're consulting to companies. Are you saying you can lay off a certain amount of your employees if you replace them with agents?
No, at least what we have found is that AI is a remarkable amplifier of existing skills and talent. AI doesn't replace your need to write, it makes you a better writer. It doesn't replace your need to communicate, it makes you a better communicator. It doesn't replace your need to solve problems, it makes you a better problem solver. And now, the way that we are going to interact with each other and the way that we are working and the tasks that we're going to complete at work as part of that, that is definitely going to change. And that is a very human problem. That's one of the things that leaders in this room need to be very mindful of as they lead their organizations through this shift. How do you help your workforce make those changes? But if you can crack that nut, if you can get through that, if you can create an environment where there is safety to experiment, where you're able to scale this capability in meaningful ways, then you will see not just efficiency improvements, but you'll see material growth. You'll see an improvement in the types of return that you get for the skills and expertise of the people on your teams. And you tend to invest where you get the best return on that investment. And as AI amplifies those returns, you will invest more. And I suspect that growth that results from that investment will lead to us having larger teams where AI can be most amplifying, not smaller teams. And so whilst I think it's interesting to talk about the number of lines of code that AI can generate, a much more interesting question in my opinion is, of the software engineers that we have today, how does that role change from a world where there is economic value in directly manipulating the source code to a world where the economic value comes from the problem solving and the architecture and working backwards from the actual problem that you're trying to solve. AI amplifies all those skills and removes the draconian need to type into a word processor in order to be able to express the solution of your problem. That to me seems like the single largest creative uplift that we have seen probably in 5 or 6 generations.
Francis, you mentioned the 30% number. I think you said 30% of your...
of the code in production is developed by AI.
is done by AI. Does
Yeah.
that mean you need 30% fewer engineers? How does that translate?
Here's how it's playing out, right? If you think about where the world we're going to, right, where we have AI and AI agents everywhere, to enable that world, what do we need? Well, first of all, we need a lot more data centers that have to be built. AI is not going to build those data centers. We need new power capacity that has to be built. AI is not building that. Those are people. We need a new grid. Literally every part of this world needs to be built. Every function is going to change. And so there's going to be an enormous demand, I think, for people to build those things. Now, what I'd say is people should be using AI today. Every job can be made better by harnessing the power of AI. And so everybody here should be using AI in their role. As you heard from Matt, the need for those roles aren't going away. We'll be able to do them better. And then AI will also transform everybody to be a manager of a group of effectively very talented executives. And so our role in terms of planning, managing, orchestrating is going to become much more important going forward. But to get to that world, we will need a lot of jobs and a lot of people to do the work.
And
so
also, these jobs are going to be more stressful jobs. So one thing we are finding, for example, contact centers that Matt mentioned, they're going to become increasingly automated. But the higher order problems are going to be elevated to humans. So we are working with these humans. We are feeding them through AI, deciding at what point 60-second resets. Again, based on the neuroscience, that stress in any job, especially a job where you are regularly yelled at, is inevitable. But cumulative stress, and it's cumulative stress that's the problem, is not inevitable. If you interrupt the stress cycle within 60 or 90 seconds of focusing on conscious breathing, on images of joy, gratitude, music, 60 seconds. And the impact is incredible because it really recalibrates the human nervous system. So while we are talking about all this incredible power of AI to write code, to automate contact center operations, what are we doing to make humans able to deal with this unprecedented change? And I happened to be in Redmond when Satya Nadella introduced the Copilot the first time. And he said that the Copilot will connect you to the soul of work, which is really what you're saying, removing the drudgery, connecting you to what you love about your work, which is kind of incredible. But I also have a higher ambition for AI. I want AI to connect it to our own soul. Because a lot of people are walking around disconnected from who they truly are, constantly distracted, living in the shallows. And that's what has led to the huge health crisis and mental health crisis. So that's my high ambition for AI, which may seem utopian right now, but it is a utopian technology. Why not aim high?
Why not aim high? I think, I do think actually this idea of human ambition and human wellness needs to be at the center of it. I think it's true for work as well and in life. If you don't put the human at the center, if there's one thing that I urge as leaders, I think we think about ors, this or that. I think it's and, right? Innovation and trust. Back to Matt's point about, like, you do have both of these parts of your organization. There's no easy solution. It's an and. It's the higher order elevating, raising the ceiling for humans and raising the floor in terms of the efficiency. It's an and from my perspective.
But to Ariana's point, the single fastest, if you look at the usage of how people are actually using these tools that are available today, the single largest growing area is in mental health and therapy.
Yep.
It is incredibly common for non-technical folks outside of work to use ChatGPT and others like it as a safe space to explore some of the hardest traumas of their life. And if that was not the case even 12 months ago, and in just those 12 months, it has become the one or the two most common use cases for services like ChatGPT. And that is in part because this stuff is just so democratized at this point. There's hundreds of millions of people using it. And these systems are already finding a home, to your point, in helping folks through developing their mental health. And that is an incredibly human challenge that the tool is helping overcome. It's a safe space to explore some of your trauma or just a difficult situation that you're in. And I hear all the time that that is how a lot of people get into using AI in the first place.
And one of the main reasons it's so successful is because the AI therapist doesn't judge you.
That's right.
And,
Safe
you know,
space.
it's a little bit like a GPS in your car. You know, it recalculates, it helps you recalibrate. You know, it doesn't say, I told you to turn left, you idiot. So I think that's incredibly appealing, and it's one of the great features of the AI therapist.
But so Ariana, you've laid out a very optimistic vision here, and everyone on this panel has explained all the ways that AI is going to improve productivity. It's going to create all these new opportunities. There is a question from the audience here saying, we've heard how amazing AI is. I'd love to hear your biggest fear about AI in your business and beyond. And I had a very similar question, thinking about the risks around security, privacy, data integrity. And I want to go to you, Matt, on this first, just because I'm sure this is something you have to help your clients navigate through. What are your biggest fears? Or what should companies' biggest fears be?
Well, what's really interesting is that a lot of the organizations that we work with that are moving the fastest in artificial intelligence adoption and are furthest through their journey are actually those that have taken privacy and data governance the most seriously. And in many cases, they are, like folks in this room, they are regulated industries that have had been required through compliance to meet data quality and data governance and data privacy needs. And that investment, which and that compliance, which maybe felt like a bit of a headwind over the past 20 years, has actually provided the foundations for artificial intelligence being actually a relatively small incremental lift for the success of that organization. And so organizations that maybe don't have the best reputation for moving through technology adoption journeys quickly, financial services, life insurance companies, healthcare companies. When I was at med school, the actual test that you had to do to pass to be a junior doctor that was related to computing was you had to log in to the computer, open a word processor, make an edit, and save it. That was it. That was the whole test. So these are naturally conservative organizations that are not often at the leading edge of technology. However, because of the investments that they have made in privacy and security, taking it really, really seriously, they've been able to adopt AI as more quickly because governance, although it sounds like a heavy, slow word, it actually speeds you up when you come to artificial intelligence. It allows everybody inside your organization to know what data is available to them, what the quality of that data is, what they can use it for, where they can put it, without any ambiguity. And those controls and guardrails allow that group to innovate and experiment much more quickly than if they have to guess. And so that governance allows you to move more quickly, not more slowly. I think that's one of the counterintuitive things about artificial intelligence adoption.
But there's a follow from the audience here, specifically for PwC, Matt. Someone in the audience asked, do you really believe the next 5 years staff won't be laid off at PwC and others because of AI? And that's really a question for everyone here, but specifically for PwC.
Look, throughout the course of PwC's history, we're a 175-year-old, organization. We have to look at the health and the skills of our organization. We do that periodically, as everybody that leads an organization in this room does. And from time to time, we're going to look at the skill sets that we have. We're going to look at how they match against the challenges that our clients are facing, and we're going to need to make adjustments as a result of that adjudication, just like everybody else is going to do as well.
I want to hear more thoughts on concerns, risks that need to be mitigated.
Yeah,
I think about it in terms of the 5 Ds. So Matt talked about the first one, which is data security. The second one is disinformation. The third is discrimination and the inherent bias in a lot of these models. The fourth is displacement, what we were just talking about. And then the fifth is the divide between the people and the businesses that have access to these technologies and are learning rapidly how to use them, how not to use them, and those who don't. And so I think each of those, again, has to be front and center in the design of any application or platform regarding AI.
My biggest fear is that we are so legitimately fascinated by this new technology and the razzle-dazzle of this new technology that we are going to forget the human at the center. And even when you talked about your 87-year-old father, I'd love to talk to you about it off stage as well. The one thing you didn't mention is him, like his own habits. What is he eating? How does he sleep? What is his stress level? Is he able to move at all? You see, we talked about what are the doctors doing? How are his caregivers dealing with him? The essence is him. And, you know, to take it away from your father, why are so many people having diabetes? Why are so many people dealing with heart failure? What is going on? This is truly a crisis. It's not just an American crisis, it's a global crisis. And we need to address it. AI can help us because it can literally, when we onboard a user to our AI health coach, we put together their biometric data, medical data, lab data, but also their preferences. What do they like to eat? Do they like to move? How do they sleep, etc., so that we can give them the best nudges and recommendations throughout the day. But health is also what happens between doctor visits. And my concern is that we are focusing so much on what our doctors doing and much less on what humans are doing. And we know from the data, our genes are 7% of our health outcomes. Why are we ignoring our habits, which are the biggest part of our health outcomes?
I think I think this resonates with me in terms of, again, like I see parallels even in the business side of the world and the personal side of the world, where if I think about what concerns me, I think it is about, you know, what is your starting point? Putting the human at the center of it, whether it's at work or in life, and then building processes and governance and trust, as well as innovating. So today, I think, I mean, I'm in customer meetings every day, and what the biggest thing that we hear is there's either these two extremes, right? It's the wild, wild west with the razzle-dazzle. Everyone's like wants to be the cool kid and build with the latest models and all of that. Or the other extreme, which is like, this is too much change and we just don't know. There's almost like a paralysis, right? And I think the right thing is the balance in between, where you are in charge, whether you're human in personal life or you're a leader at work, and say, start with the ambition of the business or the person. Start with that and say, AI at the end of the day is just a tool. It's an amazing, magical tool. It's better than anything we've seen. It's way more intelligent than any humans in specific ways, but it's a tool that needs to work for you, right? And I think, at least at Microsoft, our goal is, hey, start with the human ambition, have an assistant that is, of course, super smart, Copilot, and then these teams of agents that work for you.
Yes.
Speaking of people, one of the other challenges that we are focused on at Google is the bad actors, the malicious players in the environment. And so
the disinformation.
The disinformation and the people that are actively trying to either steal your stuff or sabotage you. And so in addition to our big investments in AI, we're really expanding our investments in cybersecurity, risk, governance, and privacy, including we announced a $32 billion deal to acquire a company that does cloud security. And so we recognize that there are the bad actors that are now well-powered with AI, and so we need to continue ramping up the defense side to make sure that your data is safe.
Yeah, the stakes are higher there. We only have 5 minutes, and I would love to address a question from the audience, but also get your predictions for 3-5 years from now. Matt just said he hopes we're all back here in a year. I hope we're all back here in a year and 2 years and 3 years, but the question is, can we predict past a year with AI? Can we really predict 3 to 5 years out? And I want to start this question with one from the audience. Someone asks, is it possible everyone is wrong? AI will streamline work, save time, answer questions, make things faster like the computer has done, but really won't change life much at all. So far, despite all the hype, it hasn't done much. I would say cancer researchers using AI may disagree, but it's an interesting question to pose here as I ask you, what will the conversation be in 3 to 5 years? And we have to keep it tight because we have to keep Milken on schedule. Who wants to go first? Matt, you want to?
Sure. Look, I think technology over time, the capability follows an S-curve. You start off with modest improvements, they're systematic, they're monotonic, and then you hit an inflection point where there's a very rapid increase in capability. And then over time, it tails off, and what you've got is pretty much what you're going to have to live with only modest improvements and kind of diminishing returns. I think that some folks would say that we're probably in the middle of that high gradient part of the S-curve, but I don't think we are. I think we're all the way on the left-hand side. I don't think we're anywhere near the inflection point yet. And the question, the strategic question that a lot of organizations face is, since you can only know where you're at on the graph looking backwards, how do you know when you're going to hit that inflection point? How do you know where to invest? And that's where we spend a lot of our time.
Since we're almost out of time, let's go down the line. Clara, you're next.
I think 3 years is an eternity, given how quickly AI is changing. So I'll share 3 predictions. One is businesses will be unrecognizable to what we're used to here. Departments are going to completely change. Some of them are going to go away. Everyone's job is going to continuously change. Number 2, for consumers, we're going to experience the internet and the world in very different ways. I mean, we didn't even talk today about, AI devices like AI glasses. I mean, I think it's really going to blur the lines between what we've traditionally viewed as digital versus physical reality. And then third, and this is very important for all of us and everyone in the room, is it's really up to us. I mean, all the concepts we just discussed in terms of human-centered design and ethics and values, we have to build those into the systems. They won't happen on their own because ultimately these are tools that we get to design.
And I agree. I think it all depends on whether we are going to have this big philosophical conversation that we have been avoiding since the Industrial Revolution, which is who are we? Why are we here? What is the purpose and meaning of life? I know these sound very big questions, but we are curious people. Don't you want to know? And this incredible technology, this revolutionary technology, is really a forcing function for us to ask these questions. And if we ask them, we are going to get to some unbelievable results. Health, which is the area I'm working on, will be truly revolutionized because for the first time we'll go upstream and recognize the root causes of disease rather than what we are doing now, which is having a fantastic sick care system, but not promoting health. So that's my biggest optimism, but it depends on doing that work, which is actually really exciting, guys, of asking these big questions.
Maybe I'll have 2 predictions and a hope. Prediction 1 is, I think we're going to enter a golden area of science, that AI is going to allow us to answer questions that we couldn't before, allowing new breakthrough therapies for diseases we just, as humans, couldn't fully understand before. We'll see new materials that'll give us new weapons in the war against climate change. So that's one prediction. Second, I think we'll see the emergence of less than 10 employee businesses that are worth billions of dollars because of what they can do powered by AI. So I think we'll see an emergence of all these amazing small businesses that are punching way above what we think they can do today. The hope is that we use the power of AI to emerge as healthier humans because we have access to more mental health care. We have more time for connections. So that's my hope.
All right. I have 3 statements. One, the future is here. It's unevenly distributed. That's why we see kind of some sparks and somewhere else not much changing. Second, I do think there will be the emergence of these frontier firms. These are lean, rethought, AI ground up. Just like we're thinking of workflows and products, there'll be companies rethought AI ground up, and we all have that opportunity. And finally, I do think, as an AI optimist, that it is raising the floor, it is raising the ceiling, and it is opening doors. And like we're all part of the solution.
A lot of AI optimism. I like to hear it. We're out of time, but Aparna, Francis, Ariana, Clara, and Matt, thank you so much for joining us here for this conversation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed the discussion. Please make your way to the next session.